if you're going to have a conversation about gas mileage and fuel efficiency, well, it's a topic that even in today's day and age, people don't really want to talk about it too much, especially if they're like people like I know, where they bring up images of things like this or like this. But if you're somebody who also wants family transportation while also staying green, well, that is where the conversation can take a really interesting turn. However, I would say never fear on the matter, because this week our friends at Hyundai North America have sent us over their own idea in the matter. But to be honest, it doesn't really scream green now, does it? Over the years, you guys have heard me say that I am not the biggest fan of hybrid vehicles, and honestly, it really doesn't matter what size they are, what engines they have, or how advanced they are in terms of their technology. I have never once thought of either owning a hybrid, much less driving one long term. And I know that is not the statement one would want to hear when we're talking about a review of a hybrid vehicle. But you know what? The Santa Fe hybrid that I've been driving here for the past couple of days or so has really started to change my tune about things. The only thing it hasn't changed my tune about is the fact that whether you're hybrid, plug-in hybrid, or full-on electric, these vehicles are not inexpensive, SUV or not. But you know what? I can't get away from it. This one still provides some pretty good bang for buck, even though it's a shade under $44,000, and there's no easy way for me to say that. And I mean, to boot, this thing does not feel like a hybrid at all when you're driving down the road. The only inkling that I have that this particular Santa Fe is a hybrid compared to its internal combustion siblings is the fact I can look down at the gauges and I can watch this eco power charge meter bouncing back and forth as I'm applying different amounts of throttle. I can see the little EV logo light up when I'm not using the internal combustion engine as much. And of course, when you start it up in the morning, you've got that tiny little whir of the electric motor followed by complete and total silence. But of course, the biggest benefit of this, as with any hybrid, is, ta-da, gas mileage. And boy, does this thing ever do good, even though the government severely underrates this thing. Because the government says this car will get 33 in the city and 30 on the highway. But in one trip I did in this car recently, only just to work and back, which is about maybe 10 miles one way, I got this thing to over 40 miles to the gallon in the city. And that is a big thumbs up from me. And as much as the enthusiast side of me wants to talk about power and performance and the fact it makes 226 horsepower from a 1600cc or 1.6 liter turbocharged 4-cylinder and a 6-speed transmission underneath. Yeah, no CVTs in this, and an H-Track all-wheel drive system and its dual electric motors. I mean, I could talk about that for days. But you know what though? This thing is just so well behaved as an everyday mid-size crossover. I've driven so many vehicles like this where I've just had one complaint after another, and you know what? If you had told me that the Santa Fe hybrid was going to be around in the prior generation, I probably would have sneezed at it, because prior to this, at least the pre-refresh to this body style, I just did not like them. They were loud, they were obnoxious. I just did not like the Santa Fe at all. But now that Hyundai has turned this namesake up on its head and given us a much more well-rounded and sophisticated vehicle in terms of its driving manners, this is a very, very pleasant place to be. I will tell you though, it's not so pleasant in the surfaces that I'm sitting on though, because these leather seats, while they are heated and ventilated and they have the cool amenities like you'd expect from an over $40,000+ SUV, they are a little bit on the firm side. Not something I think I was expecting from a vehicle of this price tag. But you really want to know what the most amazing thing is about this Santa Fe? To me, it's not its unbelievable efficiency for being a medium-sized crossover. It's not even the amount of stuff that Hyundai gives you in terms of your bang for buck, even though again it is over 43 grand as shown here. It's the fact that it's a very pleasant place to be, and that's the word that keeps coming back to me, is just pleasant. even though the seats are a little bit firm and on rougher roads like what I'm on right now, the suspension can kind of bounce and hop around a little bit. It's a very bearable environment. Ever since Hyundai refreshed this thing completely back in 2019 and now has given us this even more updated version here in 2023, it's so pleasing to drive. You know, in terms of just usability, steering has a great weight to it. It's not too numb, but it's not too overbearing. It even has a drive mode selector if you want to change this thing's personality a little bit. But just visibility wise, it's great in every direction, even out of the back window. I just feel like I could do an effortless road trip in this car and not have to worry about really anything, much less my ears bleeding, which was my biggest complaint about the previous Santa Fe, because it's 70 miles an hour right now. I don't have to shout to anyone in this car. And as if this thing's driving dynamics weren't confusing enough, then just looking at the outside of this thing really is even more of a puzzle, because just like the way it drives, this car does not look anything like what I would imagine a hybrid to be. And I'm sure that's the case with many people, because on most fronts, it is a normal Santa Fe. The only way you'd be able to tell that this thing is a hybrid is not just by the way it sounds, but also that large hybrid badge that Hyundai has pasted on the rear tailgate. But just look at the example here. The stormy sea blue paintwork mixed with all the bright silver here on this limited model, with this giant grille, the silver accents on the bumper, just a perfect amount. You've got the 360 camera in the middle, plus all the sensors for things like forward collision warning, radar cruise control, your park distance control or parking assist, and then of course Hyundai's genius idea with the positioning of the headlights. We first saw these in 2019, but that design was just boring to me. But now look at this, the Thor's Hammer T-bar LED daytime running lights. The whole headlight assembly is LED, so LED high and low beams, your LED turn signals, these have adaptive LED lighting in them as well, not to mention auto high beam assist already thrown in. But if you just step back and look at it, it's just beautiful. And she certainly isn't a size queen either, stretching just under 189 inches long. But what's great about this body style of the Santa Fe, even before it was refreshed like the one we have here, is the profile is so much more modern. It's sleek. You can see all of the curves and swoops hidden into the bodywork. Looking down the side of the car, you've got more of that silver accent along the bottom. But talking about eye candy, look at the wheels here. If these are the hybrid only wheels, this is the most solid set of rims I've ever seen on any hybrid. Look at these, 19 inches. You've got the dark gray finish in the middle with the machined silver access lining the spokes in the outside, and they are wrapped in 235/55 series Continental tires. But if your thirst for the details has still not been quenched enough, then let's just start with the mirrors. And I have the intelligent access key in my hand right here, and you'll notice, if you can see from afar, that the mirrors are folded in because the car is currently locked. I don't even have to hit the unlock button with this thing. If I just walk up to it, you'll notice that the car recognizes the key and the mirrors automatically swing out to greet you. Now they have the cameras in each side, again being that this has a 360 monitor. They have blind spot monitoring, rear cross traffic alert, already included in the package. You'll also notice a lot more silver as you notice the details here on the door. Again, part of that lower door sill that I was mentioning, and also these bright silver roof rails going along the top. Not to mention they straddle a huge panoramic sunroof, which is always a feature I can get behind. And going back to that key fob, I mean, this is definitely one of the more unique ones that I think Hyundai has ever brought out. And you have some typical stuff like lock, unlock, power tailgate, and panic. But of course you get to the bottom of the key, and this is where things get cool. Not only do you have a factory remote start like you would expect on a higher end Hyundai, but in their infinite wisdom, they have also given it
Smart Pack.
Smart Pack?
Smart Pack.
He's got Smart Pack!
And if somehow you're not impressed with everything already and cargo space is your biggest priority, well, let me just say that I think you'll be pretty impressed with what the Santa Fe has to offer for its size. Not just in the amount of space you can get by doing things like folding down the second row seats, but more so, this is the Santa Fe Hybrid Limited after all, so you can do away with hitting the trunk button on the key or pulling the latch or even hitting the button inside of the driver's area. And it'd be nice if, as New Yorkers would say, you could forget about it, right? So just have the key anywhere on your person. You walk up to the trunk, and as if by magic, the sucker pops open by itself. That is one of the features I've always loved, is this magic hands-free access. And when you look inside, you are greeted by a pretty cavernous space. And one of the things that is definitely worth noting is that even though this is a hybrid, there is no sacrifice space in the back here. There's no battery cell bump, nothing like that, nothing like hybrids of old. Instead, what you get is a nice little storage space for things like your tire mobility kit and so on under here. You've got a 3-tiered storage right here in the middle, and combined together behind the second row of seats is a little over 36 cubic feet of cargo volume. Sounds like plenty, but you could just hit these 2 little buttons here or use the levers on the sides of the second row, fold that down, and you're suddenly looking at over 72 cubic feet of cargo volume. That is enough to hide at least a small futon, a medium-sized piece of furniture. I mean, pretty much anything you want. So again, very, very surprising just how much you can really fit, let alone how much room you get in the back of the new Santa Fe. And if you still needed any kind of convincing that the beauty of the Santa Fe is not just skin deep, then I would suggest taking a look at this limited hybrids cabin. Now, note-wise, I would say there are nicer cabins out there, specifically like the Santa Fe Calligraphy, but that's more of a niche model. I would say that's one that if you really wanted the best of everything minus the hybrid part, yeah, that's probably the one you would look at. But if you literally want the whole 9 yards, efficiency, options, bang for buck, looks, I mean, everything, this is the model that you want. And quite frankly, the first opinion that I had about this thing was when Hyundai first dropped this thing off a couple of days ago, it felt like I was getting into a Palisade. I did not feel like I was getting into something a little bit smaller because, number one, you sit up nice and high, even with the driver's seat memory as far back as it can go with the car off. The view in here is commanding. The headroom is actually very nice, especially even with this panoramic sunroof above me. I feel like also it's just so well optioned. And speaking of options, if you're thinking that anything in here is extra, you're wrong. Everything on the limited hybrid is standard. So from the leather wrapped steering wheel, which is heated as well, you've got paddles on the back, which is a bit interesting. But then again, we also have a standard 6-speed automatic transmission under here. But you've got the floating center console. You've got these leather bound seats, which like I said, are heated and cooled, and also in typical high-end fashion. Turn on the car, and they suddenly scoot you back up to the way that you're most comfortable. So a memory function, it's not the most unique feature about this, but what can I say? If you literally want the best bang for buck out of any Hyundai product or any Hyundai crossover, this is the one you want to take a look at. But some of my favorite elements are the 2 giant screens that I was talking about. The center screen, well, it's not so giant. It's more so the perfect size. It's a 10.3-inch screen, but you also have the much larger Hyundai Supervision gauge cluster. Now, we've seen this before, thin film transistor display, not only with interchangeable gauges, which you can tie into the drive mode selector here, or you can even go into the infotainment and have it set on one particular gauge setting, but just the way it looks. I mean, no matter what the exterior color of the car is, or even the interior color, there's something about the colors and the way it's all designed that makes this gauge cluster one of my favorites in the industry currently. But also, going into more details, like they've put leather on the dash. The steering wheel, as I said, it is leather wrapped, but the quality of the materials feels like it's just been continuously going upward. It's a little bit softer. It doesn't feel as plasticky or as cheap. The buttons are all there as well. Some of them might be a little bit unfamiliar, like the lane tracing system and just the one button to control your distance sensor for the radar cruise control, but voice recognition, Bluetooth, volume controls, I mean, it's all there. It's everything that you would need. But just what's right here is nothing compared to what is sitting front and center. And by front and center, of course, I'm talking about for the front, you have the new infotainment screen with Hyundai's newest telematics. As I said, it's not the biggest or the smallest. It has Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, which is wired in this case. I'm actually surprised it's not wireless, considering not only the price point, but you would think with the way Hyundai has been going with their technology, with their newest telematics system and the functionality of everything, that they would have made it wireless in this case. But also as a hindrance, with it being wired in, I don't know if it's my phone or the cord that I'm using, but I've had some connectivity issues with it. Sometimes it'll jump in and out of Android Auto itself, or it may just not even read the USB at all. So that is a little bit concerning for me in the long run. But aside from the screen, you also have what looks like the Starship Enterprise here that's surrounded in sort of this kind of fake carbon trim. For the detail-oriented, it might be a little bit of a hindrance, but for me, it's not a problem. Looking here in the middle, dual zone climate controls. You've got the physical buttons for things within the infotainment. There are some buttons I'm not really a fan of, like the push button selector for the 6-speed selectable transmission. Not really my favorite thing in really any vehicle that they put this sort of feature in. I'm more so used to the old school gear selector handle. Heated and cooled seats, those are there. You have your camera controls, parking sensor controls, hill descent control, heated steering wheel, auto brake hold, and then of course the giant rotary knob that not only allows you to lock the center differential. I mean, it's not a 4-wheel drive truck, but that's kind of nice. And then of course you have the 4 selectable driving modes around the outside. And while this may look a little bit more futuristic, my favorite thing about at least the modern stuff in here is the stereo system. You guys know I'm a tech head, but I'm also a music file, and this has a 12-speaker Harman Kardon audio system paired with QLS surround sound technology. And the first time I tried this out, I honestly thought I was in a mobile movie theater. And after all of that, if it's still not enough for you, there is still the hidden cup holder in the middle, which is quite sizable. It could still fit my water bottle in there just fine. There's a USB right next to it for connecting to Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. But my favorite thing is the positioning of the wireless charger, because it's not in the center console. It's not even under the floating dash. It is right there. And while it may seem like I'm total glitz and glamour about this thing, I will say there is one area of this vehicle in particular that seems a little more barren than most buyers would probably like, especially considering, again, this car costs over 40 grand as it sits, and that's the back seat area. I'm not saying it's devoid of everything though. You still get heated outboard seats, so unfortunately your middle passenger's rear end will still stay nice and cold even on some of those warmer days. The only thing good about the middle though is there is this middle armrest right here with 2 sizable drink holders. There are no bottle holders in the door though, which I know some of the competition does offer, so that's a little bit of a downer. You still get rear air vents as well, again, even though there's no second row climate control, because, well, there's not a 3rd row of seats back there that needs extra power for controlling the AC as well. That's more than enough coming from the system up front. You still get 2 USB chargers down at the base of everything as well. And comfort wise, I mean, I'm perfectly fine back here. As I said, I'm over 6 feet tall. I have at least about 3 fingers width between my knees and the back of the driver's seat as I currently have it positioned right now. But if that's still not enough comfort for you, you can always grab the lever on the side of the seat, lean it back, make yourself nice at home. And if it's a little too bright outside, you can also put up the manual sunshades, which are a little bit finicky because they have those 2 tiny little hooks on them. But after that, I would not mind spending some time back here at all. And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, this now wraps up our review and drive of the 2023 Hyundai Santa Fe Hybrid. You know, as much as I was ready to give this thing a lot of grief for being a hybrid in general, just because I'm not that much of a hybrid fan, I will still say that not only has this car impressed me through and through, but yes, it has changed my tune about what I think a hybrid really should feel and drive like. But anyways, guys, if you've been impressed with not only this car, but anything else you may have seen on the channel, give this video a thumbs up, and also while you're at it, hit the subscribe button down below, because trust me, I want to keep doing more stuff like this, plus maybe some other plans to come along in the pipeline very soon. But anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you all in the next one. Take care, everybody, and stay safe.